I want to talk about a very general form of the concept of opposition between two kings in an endgame. The basic definition of opposition says when two kings are on the same line, and by line I mean either a file going up and down, or a rank, or a diagonal. So when two kings are on the same line and they have an odd number of squares, 1, 3, 5 squares between them, then those kings are said to be in opposition. So let's look at some examples. So here the kings are in opposition because they're in the same line, the D file, and there are an odd number of squares between them, 3 squares between them. Or let's look at this possibility. Those kings are said to be in opposition because they're on the same diagonal, that's a line, and again there are an odd number of squares between them, 3 in this case. Or maybe this example, those kings are said to be in opposition because they're in the same line, the 5th rank, and there are an odd number of squares between them, 5 squares in this case. Or here's a really simple form. These kings are in opposition, they're on the same line, the F file, and there's an odd number of squares between them, just 1 square. So you want to be the one that gets into that position, into that opposition. So if it's your move and you move into such a situation where there are an odd number of squares between the kings, then you've just gained the opposition. You have the opposition and you're forcing your opponent's king to move away and give ground. So opposition is a good thing to get in the endgame. But there's a more general form of the opposition that can occur even when the kings are not on the same line. Let's take a look. Let's put the white king on A1 and the black king on E8. If they're not on the same line and you want to check, are they in opposition, a general form of the opposition, then what you want to do is create a rectangle where the two kings are on opposite corners of that rectangle, like that one right there. Look at the 4 corners of the rectangle. If all 4 corners are of the same color, then the kings are said to be in this kind of opposition, this general form of opposition. So here the corners are not all the same color. 2 are white on the top and 2 are dark on the bottom. So that's not opposition. So let's say it's white to move. Can white gain the opposition with this move right here? Well, white can't get into the same line as the black king. It can't get on the same file or rank or even diagonal. But the white king can gain the opposition, and there's only one way to do it, by moving to A2. Let's check that these kings are in opposition. Well, if you create this rectangle, then it has these 4 corners, and they're all the same color. They're all light squares. So yes, white has just gained the opposition. What does this mean? Well, it means that no matter how black moves, white will be able to maintain some form of the opposition, and eventually white will be able to force a very simple kind of opposition where the 2 kings are on the same line, either rank, diagonal, or file. Let's see if black can avoid that. How can black move to avoid the opposition? Well, right now black has 5 moves, and let's eliminate some of them. For example, what if the black king moves here? Can white get the opposition? Yes, the white king can move to B3. They would be on the same diagonal with 1, 2, 3 squares between them. So white would gain the opposition. What if the black king moved there? Can white get the opposition? Well, he can get to the same diagonal as the black king by moving here, but that's not the opposition because there would be 1, 2, 3, 4 squares between. So if the black king goes there, then no, it doesn't look like white can get one of the simple kinds of opposition where they are in the same line, but can white gain this more general form of the opposition? Can he create a rectangle where all 4 squares are the same color? Well, there are 2 candidates here, or 3 candidates, 3 different dark squares white can go to, but only one of them works. If he goes to this one, so that these opposite corners are both dark, well, complete the rectangle and the other 2 corners are light. That doesn't work. If he goes here so that these opposite corners are dark, then yes, these other corners of the rectangle would be dark as well. That's the way to go. You can check that king to a3 is no good. So the king goes here. That's the way to maintain the opposition. So now we have this general form of opposition that white just gained. So let's continue to see if black can avoid the opposition. Well, does black want to move up? No, because then the white king would move up, getting the diagonal opposition with 3 squares between them. So he wants to avoid that. What if he moves over here? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, white can move there with 5 squares between them on this diagonal. So that's no good. Can he move here? Well, then white can move here with 1, 2, 3 squares between them for a diagonal opposition. So that's no good either. So these squares over on this side are out of bounds. What if he moves here? Well, then white can move here with 3 squares between them and have the diagonal opposition. So that leaves this move. Let's check out that move, going back this way. What can white do here? Well, white cannot get into the same line as the black king, but white can step to c2 and create this rectangle where all the corners are light squares. So white's gained the opposition again. Now let's see if black can avoid it longer. Black doesn't want to step to the d file now because white would be able to step to the d file as well and gain the opposition on that line. So let's say black goes somewhere else. How about here? Well, then white can move up correspondingly and create this type of opposition where all 4 corners are the same color. Now let's say the black king moves further to the right. He doesn't want to step on the d file again, or white would move over to the d file and get the opposition. If he comes up, white can go up and get the diagonal opposition. If he goes here, then let's see what happens. If he goes to e8, we can't get on the same line as black, but we can move forward and get this rectangular form of opposition where all the corners are the same. Now, I think black is running out of possibilities. If he goes here, white can get the diagonal opposition like that. If he goes here, white can get the diagonal opposition like that. If he goes here, white can get an opposition on the d file. If he goes here, white can get an opposition on the d file. So there's nowhere black can go without white getting the opposition at that point. So if you get that rectangular form of opposition, that means eventually you will be able to force your way into a situation where you have opposition on a straight line. All right, thanks for watching the video.